Hi everyone. Welcome back to our channel English Rise. This channel was created to help you improve your English listening and speaking skills through calm, deep, and meaningful storytelling. If this kind of content helps you, consider subscribing and becoming part of our community. Today, we are going to talk about something most people feel but rarely talk about: loneliness during change. When people imagine personal growth, they imagine motivation, confidence, and success. They imagine becoming stronger, wiser, and more independent. But what they do not imagine is the silence, the distance, the feeling of being misunderstood. Change often feels lonely, and that loneliness is not a mistake. It is a signal. As you listen to this video, you are not only practicing English, you are also understanding a deep psychological truth about growth. Part 2. Why change separates you from your old world. When you start to change, your environment does not change with you. Your habits shift. Your priorities evolve. Your way of thinking becomes different. But the people around you often stay the same. This creates distance, not because you are better than them, not because they are wrong, but because growth changes alignment. You stop enjoying the same conversations. The same distractions feel empty. The same routines feel limiting. And slowly, without conflict, separation begins. This is one of the hardest parts of change. You are no longer comfortable in the old version of your life, but you are not yet fully inside the new one. This in-between space feels lonely, but it is necessary. Part 3. Why your mind interprets growth as loss. The human brain is wired to avoid loss. Even when change is positive, your mind focuses on what you are leaving behind. Old identities, old relationships, old habits, old comfort. Growth requires letting go. And letting go feels like losing a part of yourself. This is why change feels emotionally heavy. You are not just building something new. You are grieving something old. Most people misunderstand this feeling. They think something is wrong with them. They think they are failing. But in reality, this discomfort means the process is working. You cannot grow without shedding old layers. Loneliness is often the space left behind. Part 4. Why most people turn back when it gets quiet. At the beginning of change, there is excitement, new ideas, new goals, new energy. But after that phase fades, silence appears. No applause, no validation, no clear signs of progress. This is where most people turn back. They return to familiar habits. They reconnect with old versions of themselves. Not because it is better, but because it is known. Loneliness scares people more than stagnation. Staying the same feels safer than standing alone. But safety is often the enemy of growth. Part 5. The difference between being alone and being isolated. Loneliness during change is not the same as isolation. Isolation is disconnection without purpose. Loneliness during growth is temporary separation with direction. You are not alone because you failed socially. You are alone because your inner world is transforming. This space allows reflection, clarity, self-awareness. Without it, growth becomes shallow. Many people surround themselves with noise to avoid this phase. But noise delays transformation. Silence accelerates it. Part 6. Why change requires emotional courage, not confidence. Most people believe that confident people change easily. This is not true. Change does not require confidence. It requires emotional courage. Confidence appears after action. Courage appears before it. When you change, you act without certainty. You walk without guarantees. You move forward while doubting yourself. This emotional exposure is uncomfortable. You are seen differently, sometimes misunderstood, sometimes questioned. Loneliness appears because you are no longer hiding behind familiar roles. And this courage is quiet. It does not feel heroic. It feels heavy. But this is where strength is built. Part 7. Why your old environment resists your growth. Not everyone will celebrate your change. When you evolve, you disrupt expectations. You challenge unspoken agreements. People are comfortable with the version of you they understand. Your growth forces them to reflect on themselves. And reflection can be uncomfortable. This resistance is rarely aggressive. It is subtle. Jokes, distance, silence. And slowly, you feel alone. This does not mean you chose the wrong path. It means you chose a different one. Part 8. The psychological cost of staying the same. Staying the same also has a cost. It costs authenticity. It costs potential. It costs self-respect. But this cost is invisible. Loneliness during change is visible and uncomfortable. Stagnation is quiet and numbing. Most people choose stagnation because it feels less painful. But long-term, it creates regret. Change hurts now. Staying the same hurts later. Growth asks you to choose your pain. Part 9. Why loneliness is a sign of alignment. Loneliness during growth is not emptiness. It is alignment. You are aligning with values that matter, with goals that require discipline, with a version of yourself that feels true. Alignment creates distance from what no longer fits, and that distance feels like loneliness. But it is temporary. Every meaningful transformation passes through solitude. Part 10. How silence rebuilds your identity. In silence, your identity becomes clear. Without constant external influence, you hear your own thoughts. You understand your motivations. You recognize what truly matters. This is why silence feels uncomfortable. It removes distractions. It removes excuses. But it also removes confusion. And clarity is powerful. Part 11. How loneliness builds self-trust. When you are surrounded by people all the time, your decisions are influenced. Opinions shape you, expectations guide you. Approval becomes a reference point. Loneliness removes these external signals. And in that absence, something important happens. You begin to listen to yourself. You start making decisions without asking for permission. You learn to sit with uncertainty. You learn to trust your own judgment. This is uncomfortable at first. Without external validation, doubts become louder. Questions feel heavier. Silence feels endless. But slowly, self-trust forms. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop explaining your choices. You stop seeking approval. This is not arrogance. It is internal stability. Loneliness trains you to rely on yourself emotionally. And this skill is essential for any meaningful change. Part 12. Why change often feels like identity death. Change is not just about behavior. It is about identity. When you grow, parts of your old self no longer fit. The way you spoke, the way you reacted, the way you saw yourself. Letting go of an old identity feels like losing something familiar, even if that identity was limiting. This creates grief. You are not sad because you are failing. You are sad because you are transforming. Most people resist change because they fear this internal loss. They cling to old labels because they feel safe. But safety is not growth. Loneliness appears when the old identity dissolves and the new one has not fully formed yet. This space is fragile, but it is sacred. Part 13. Why most people misunderstand this phase. From the outside, this phase looks confusing. People may think you are distant. They may think you changed for the worse. They may not understand your silence. But transformation is not loud. It happens internally first. And because others cannot see it, they misinterpret it. This misunderstanding increases loneliness. But it also strengthens conviction. You learn to move forward without applause, without permission, without reassurance. This is emotional independence. Part 14. How change redefines your relationship with time. When you change, your sense of time shifts. You stop living for immediate comfort. You start thinking long-term. This creates distance from people who live only for now. Different time horizons create separation. You become patient. They remain reactive. And patience is often lonely. But patience builds futures, consistency, discipline, long-term vision. These qualities are formed in solitude. Part 15. Why this loneliness is temporary. Loneliness during change does not last forever. It exists to create space. Space for clarity, space for growth, space for realignment. Once your new identity stabilizes, new connections appear. People aligned with your values, with your direction, with your rhythm. But these connections cannot exist before transformation. You must become someone new first. And becoming someone new requires solitude. Part 16. How loneliness creates inner power. Inner power is not built in crowds. It is built in moments where no one is watching. Loneliness forces you inward. When there is no one to impress, no one to please, no one to convince, you begin to confront yourself honestly. You see your fears clearly. Your weaknesses become visible. Your excuses lose strength. This is uncomfortable, but this discomfort is productive. In loneliness, you stop performing and start becoming. You no longer rely on external energy to move forward. You generate your own. This is inner power. It is quiet. It is stable. It does not depend on approval. People often confuse inner power with confidence or dominance, but inner power is something deeper. It is the ability to stay grounded when things feel uncertain. It is the ability to move forward without external validation. It is the ability to remain calm when you are misunderstood. Loneliness accelerates this process. When you are alone, there is no one to rescue you from your thoughts. No distraction to hide behind. No noise to soften uncomfortable truths. You begin to face yourself honestly. You realize which goals truly matter, which fears are real, which beliefs are holding you back. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Inner power is not built by avoiding discomfort. It is built by surviving it. And loneliness is one of the most powerful forms of emotional training. Part 17. Why strong people are shaped in quiet seasons. Every strong person has lived through quiet seasons. Not moments of applause, not moments of celebration, but long periods where nothing seemed to happen. These seasons feel empty from the outside, but inside, everything is changing. In quiet seasons, habits are formed. Discipline is strengthened. Character is refined. When no one is watching, you discover who you really are. Do you stay consistent? Do you stay honest? Do you keep going? Most people avoid these seasons because they feel lonely and slow. But those who endure them emerge stronger. Quiet seasons are not pauses, they are preparation. Part 18. How change teaches you to stand alone without hardening. One of the risks of loneliness is emotional hardening. Closing yourself off, becoming distant or cold. But healthy loneliness does the opposite. It teaches you to stand alone without becoming isolated, to be independent without becoming disconnected, to be strong without becoming rigid. You learn to choose connection, not depend on it. This balance is rare. It allows you to engage with others from a place of strength, not need, from authenticity, not fear. Change requires this balance. You must learn to be whole on your own before you can truly connect with others. Part 19. Why change requires temporary discomfort. Growth is not comfortable. If it were, everyone would do it. Change disrupts routines, challenges beliefs, forces decisions. Loneliness is one of its side effects. But temporary discomfort prevents permanent regret. Many people choose comfort now and regret later. Growth asks you to choose discomfort now and peace later. This is the trade. Loneliness is the price of becoming someone new. Part 20. How this process applies to learning English. Learning English follows the same pattern. At first, it feels social, exciting, motivating, but real progress happens in solitude, listening alone, repeating quietly, practicing without applause. This phase feels lonely because there is no instant feedback. But this is where fluency is built. You are not performing, you are integrating. And just like personal growth, language growth requires patience and consistency. Part 21. How loneliness turns into clarity. At some point, loneliness changes its shape. What once felt heavy begins to feel calm. What once felt empty begins to feel spacious. You start seeing things clearly. You understand why certain people had to stay behind, why certain habits no longer fit, why certain paths were never meant for you. Loneliness removes emotional noise. Without constant influence, your thoughts become sharper, your values become clearer, your direction becomes more defined. This clarity is the reward of staying through the uncomfortable phase. Most people never reach it because they turn back too early. Part 22. Why change eventually attracts the right people. When your identity stabilizes, something shifts. You no longer seek connection to fill emptiness. You seek connection that aligns. This changes everything. You attract people who respect your boundaries, who understand your silence, who move at a similar rhythm. These connections are fewer, but deeper, and they are only possible because you endured loneliness first. Growth filters relationships. What remains is real. Part 23. A deeper reflection on why change always feels lonely. When you change, you are not only changing habits, you are changing direction, and direction creates distance. You begin to walk towards something that most people around you are not aiming for. They may not understand your silence. They may not understand your discipline. They may not understand why you no longer fit where you once belonged. This is where loneliness becomes unavoidable. Not because you rejected others, but because your inner compass shifted. Change isolates you from what no longer aligns, even if it once felt familiar. This is painful because humans are wired for connection. We want to belong. We want to be understood. But growth does not always allow immediate belonging. Sometimes growth asks you to walk alone for a while, so you can discover who you really are without external influence. Loneliness strips away borrowed identities. It removes labels given by others. It forces you to define yourself from the inside. And that process is slow. There are moments when you will question your decisions. Moments when you will wonder if it is worth it. Moments when returning to your old life feels tempting. But returning would mean betraying the version of yourself that is trying to emerge. Change feels lonely because it is honest. It does not distract you. It does not entertain you. It asks you to sit with yourself. And in that space, you either grow or retreat. Part 24. Why this loneliness is a sign you are on the right path. Loneliness during change is often misunderstood as failure, but it is usually confirmation. It means you are no longer numbing yourself with noise. It means you are no longer hiding behind routine. It means you are no longer living on autopilot. You are awake. Awareness is uncomfortable at first, because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. You notice misalignment. You notice wasted energy. You notice patterns that no longer serve you. This awareness creates distance, and distance feels lonely. But awareness also creates power. It allows you to choose intentionally, to live deliberately, to build a life that reflects who you truly are. Loneliness is not the enemy of change. It is the companion of transformation. Part 25. Final life lesson from change and solitude. Every meaningful transformation passes through solitude. Not because you are meant to stay alone forever, but because you are meant to become whole first. Loneliness teaches you self-responsibility. It teaches you emotional strength. It teaches you patience. It shows you that you can survive without approval. that you can move forward without validation, that you can trust yourself. And once you learn that, you never return to who you were before. You move forward differently, more grounded, more intentional, more aligned. Change does not promise comfort, it promises truth, and truth often begins in silence. If you enjoyed this calm and reflective storytelling, and if this video helped you improve your English listening skills while reflecting on deep psychological and life lessons, consider subscribing to English Rise. Here we help you improve your English through meaningful stories, clear and simple language, and consistent practice designed to build confidence naturally. Thank you for listening. Keep growing, even when it feels lonely.